What does it do when we so fundamentally mess with weather? We're changing where it rains, when it rains, how hard it rains, whether it snows or it doesn't snow, where it snows. We're changing that. What does that do to all the natural cycles? What does that do to, the rhythms of nature? So most people argue, does it exist or doesn't it exist? That's not an argument. It does exist and it's officially allowed. What you have to do is when you run weather modification projects, you have to register that with the NOAA and let them know. NOAA, the National Oceanic Atmospheric Agency here in the United States, which is responsible, which people don't know, but they're responsible for tracking weather modification projects in the US. The NOAA shows as of today, 1,147 entries for just the last few years, weather modification projects in the US. What I have found is that every such incident is an opportunity to help people ask bigger questions. You never want to just rub it in their face. You want to go, have you ever wondered? Have you noticed this? And people are. And this is the good thing is people are noticing, like people are realizing, and awareness is really reaching a high level, which is the first most important step in anything.
Yeah, it's so interesting. There's a really lovely lady who keeps bees that lives very close to me, and she rides one of my horses once per week, and she's been doing that for 20 years. And she came today to give us her last jar of honey because she's lost one of her beehives over the winter. And I said, well, what do you think's caused that? And she said, well, it's climate change. And this is why I think that the evildoers have been very clever because there is climate change. The thing that's wrong, so the word is right, there is climate change, but what's caused it is not being discussed in mainstream and still. And I am a bit horrified actually, which comes on to my next question, why I wanted to say, do you think the truth is just now being replaced entirely rather than just censored? I mean, I've personally been censored a lot more on all platforms since the start of this year, which is really interesting. It's noticeable. But this lovely lady is very intelligent and has kept bees for the last like 30 years. She still believes the mainstream narrative of climate change. And yet these discussions, for me, they're still quite in an echo chamber of the alternative media, not out in mainstream enough.
Well, it's a highly distorted discussion, like you say, and if only we paid more taxes, clearly we could fix the problem, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's,
Oh,
um, you know, I
I'll put a few tariffs in there as well.
yeah,
Yeah, that'll sort it.
where do you start with this? Because one thing is obvious: anybody who has a uh, standard school education anywhere in the world will have heard about different climate periods in our history, which are geologically, as far as we can prove anything in history. This is it's a whole nother field. But my dear friend Greg Braden is a degree geologist, right? And so he can go and use methods to prove that throughout certain periods in our history, the climate was one way, and then it changed to something else, and changed to something else. Those history for all those periods, for all intents and purposes, did not have industrialization, as far as we know. Some might have in the past far back, but
Yeah.
in recent history, we don't show industrialization in the world. So the idea that industrialization is a cause of climate change, it's sort of very ludicrous because it takes out of the conversation some of the biggest factors, like for example the sun and
Yeah.
solar activity, right? And our proximity to the sun, the activity of the sun itself, and so forth. And so nobody in their right mind would deny that climate change isn't real, because that would be just, blind. It is very real. It has always been real, as far as we can tell. The causes, of course, are what is being what we're deceived to believe is that it's how we live. And then here you have to make another turn and say, actually, it's very important that we talk about how we live because we do abuse this realm that we live in. We do live in ways that are completely out of sync. But I would say that this conversation is more about sort of the immediate pollution and those things rather than it is about the big climate change thing. So for me, the climate change conversation is really about how do we adjust to what the changes that are happening. And then you take into the mix this geoengineering stuff and ask yourself the question, well, why are they doing it? The official version of the official version of an activity that officially is still not being done, which is like dimming the sun, and so that's still not very official. But when people talk about it in official circles, they say, well, it's to mitigate the negative effects of climate change. But is that true? Is that really why they're doing it? Or is it, and here we're going really crazy, is it because in the big scheme of things, we are moving in a trans and post-humanist world, and the plans are that these Homo sapiens biological avatars will be replaced by something else. And is it a form of terraforming to change the makeup of this realm, this planet, to favor a different kind of species? So this is a huge, huge, deep rabbit hole. And all of these points are not just theoretical, they're very valid because that's where the mainstream world is moving. That's the thinking. It's post-human thinking. And so while sort of in our naivete, we want to talk about those minor things. Those are the big things that the psychopaths are thinking about. That's where they are leading this. So it's a multifaceted discussion, and the only thing that I think is wrong in this is to do nothing about it, to not think about it, to pretend it's not there. Um, another thing to consider is that you know that there's something called the Agenda 2030. It used to be the UN Agenda 21, has expanded into the Agenda 2030 for the sustainable development goals. And if you read those documents, one of the big themes is to move people out of the rural areas everywhere in the world into urban areas, into mega 15-minute cities, which are AI driven, um, green, highly convenient, and super surveilled cities where people live, work, play, do everything, never leave. And interestingly enough, all the places that have been hit hardest in the last few years with mega weather events like freak hurricanes, fires, floods, they almost always pan out to be 15-minute cities that are in the plans. So oftentimes that means that it's easier because they just basically bulldoze the infrastructure to the ground using these weather events and just rebuild. It's like war without the war. And at the same time, specifically in the American West, for example, in Australia, they are targeting the rural areas that are sparsely populated but populated, and they're just flooding people out, right? They're just making it uninhabitable. So this is a multifaceted agenda where one thing, geoengineering and weather engineering, is used for to further many, many different goals at the same time. And you can only see that when you look at this one thing and you look at this other thing and you look at this next thing here and you start seeing what's the common theme, what connects all of these. This is how big this discussion actually really is. Folks, we don't just have an obesity crisis, we have a malnutrition crisis. Most people are actually starving at the cellular level and they don't know it. The mass produced foods simply don't have enough nutrients in them. So you stay hungry, you have those cravings, and you keep eating. This is where Green 85 by Chemical Free Body comes in. We drink it 2 times a day, and it makes all the difference because it floods our body with nutrients and our cells are actually nourished. this is where the cravings come down. You stop being hungry, and most people notice that they spend a lot less at the grocery store as well. If you want to give it a try, please visit chemicalfreebody.com/inspired.